breathe underwater.
Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show. The name of this show is called Infiltrator, right? And before I get to it, let me define for you what an infiltrator is as far as in gang life, okay? An infiltrator is somebody that gradually, secretively joins another organization, not to be loyal to it, but to gather information and find out how they're doing things, and find out what they're up to get that information back to the organization that he belongs to and is loyal to, right? It happens way more than a lot of people believe, but at the end of the day, I know when I first became a part of the org, right, I used to hear about infiltrators and all this and that, right? And for the most part, I thought it meant that people that were once upon a time a part of another gang, right, got kicked out or whatever, and then they joined the gang, they joined another gang, and the people in that particular gang that they joined, they didn't really accept them. They called them an infiltrator because, you know, you were part of one thing and now you were part of something else, and nobody ever really trusted them fully unless they actually went overboard, right? That's why a lot of people that did that, they would always go harder than anybody else just to prove themselves to the ones that belong to the organization that they had just become a part of, right? Now, but in this situation, in this story that I'm about to tell y'all, this is one of those stories that came to me years ago. And like always, you know, I get to thinking about, you know, what can I share with y'all that will really give y'all a true understanding, a better understanding rather, of how this lifestyle really is, right? This is one of those stories that I think that can help you come to that point to where you really see how treacherous, how conniving, and how well thought out, actually, some of the things that go on in organizations, criminal organizations, gangs are. And this is one of those situations where there's this guy named Sean, right? The key people in this, and of course you already know I'm changing the names, and I'm changing the names because I don't want anybody to know, but, you know, I'm going to use the name of two organizations that you're going to recognize. Could be the actual organizations that they belong to. You figure it out, okay? But here's the thing. I'm going to be dealing with three individuals mainly, right? And it's Sean, Chris, and Lisa, right? Sean is one of the, not heads of the gang, but he's one of the people that is part of the members, the leadership of an organization that he's really crazy about. He's the type of person that I was back in the day. You know, when I was in rotation, I was like GD crazy, right? I really represented to the best of my ability, all the way to the fullest. It was just nothing that you could really tell me that turned me against the business, right? Even though I would see it with my own eyes, you know, I was committed. And an outsider, I really never shared my true feelings with an outsider. I may have had discussions with brothers that I was close to about the things that I didn't like about the business, but I never let that be known to outsiders. You understand what I'm saying? And Sean was like that. But Sean was ambitious. Sean was one of those individuals. He wanted the organization that he belonged to. Let's just say that he wanted it to become the biggest, strongest organization in the city that he belonged to, right? And being a member of, let's say VL, right, Vice Lord, being a member of the Vice Lords, he wanted it to spread. Now, they were mainly located on the north side of the city, okay? And being on the north side of the city, he really didn't have things to worry about other than, you know, not getting home on time. His mother and his father, they knew that he had become a member of this organization. They were against that, but in the neighborhood that they all grew up in, they kind of understood what was going on, right? And they kind of just went on with it in a way that a lot of parents do, right? So Sean, he's like 18, 19 years old, and he's coming up. And he's making his bones, you know what I'm saying, putting in work and getting a name for himself, and he becomes part of the leadership. And while he's a part of the leadership, he's hungry for more than that. He wants to be in charge of the area that he's in. right? But to do that, he has to do something to impress the people that are above him, to let them know that he can be trusted with holding leadership in that way, that he can guide the organization, particularly on that part of the town, in a direction that would make them all more richer, stronger, and all of that type of stuff. Because the main thing that they did to earn money was drugs, right? That was one of the main things that is actually one of the things that most organizations, most gangs do. They traffic in drugs. They also traffic in other things, sex trafficking and stuff like that, extortion, robbing, you know what I'm saying, things like that. But drugs is the main source of income for most organizations, most gangs, bar none, period, point blank. You feel what I'm saying? Now, but here's the thing. To be able to make the kind of impression that he wanted to make on the people that were above him, he had to figure out a way to stay a step ahead of the individuals that the opposition, right? We call it the op, right? And let's say that's gangster disciples, you know what I'm saying? And they were mainly stationed on the south side of the city. Okay, let's just say that, right? So he wanted to figure out a way to stay a step ahead of them because, both organizations, you know what I'm saying, on their left and their right, they're coming towards the middle. They're expanding and they're going to clash eventually, right? So to, modern warfare, hey, you know what your opponent is doing. You know what I'm saying? The art of war, you got to know what your opponent is doing, right? So what he figured is that he needed to find a way to figure out what they were doing, to stay a step ahead of them. Even the people in leadership over him didn't fully understand what he was saying. Their way of dealing with situations like that was shootouts, beating each other up, fighting, stuff like that, right? But that didn't satisfy Sean. That didn't give him, the insight that he thought he would need to be able to maneuver and position himself to be able to impress those above him. That wasn't nothing. That's the typical gang response. Something happens, we go bomb. Something happened, they shoot you, you shoot them. And that's the typical way that problems are handled, right? He didn't see that in that way. He thought that if he understood and knew what they were up to, knew their moves, right? It's like playing chess. If you know that your opponent is going to move a certain piece, right? You're going to set the stage so that you can capitalize off of that, right? And make your move and checkmate him. And that's where Sean was at. He wanted to checkmate his opponents. He wanted them to understand that he was more superior than them. And in doing that, the people above him would have to recognize that. You feel me? And then elevate him. He wanted to run something. And he was intent on doing it. Like I said, he was ambitious. So he would always try to find somebody within the organization that he belonged to that was willing to risk their lives, right? Because I'm telling you something, gangs, organizations, whatever you want to call them, they are known to, it's a manipulation process where you will pledge everything you have to it, your loyalty to it, in a way to where you would not mind putting yourself at risk. And you always have those brothers that are eager to prove themselves to individuals that are in charge. Now, don't get it twisted. Sean was one of those individuals, but he was more cunning with his. He wasn't with going to kill somebody or putting his own life in danger, but he had no problem convincing another member to do the same for him. He had no problem because he mixed it up where it made it look like it's being done for the org and not him. And they had no problem in going to do it. So he would always send them out like spies. You know what I'm saying? Change your clothes. Don't wear anything that would make you, you know what I'm saying, be out of place or not fit in. And then they would go to the other side of town, not really fully understanding that you don't live over here. Nobody knows you. You don't have any family connections on this side of town. So you stick out like a sore thumb. And a lot of times those individuals ended up hurt real bad or dead. Fact. That's just what it was. So year after year, he would try that. He would get a little information here, a little information there, but not enough to really make a difference. And then one day, he was sitting down talking to some old heads, right? And while he was talking to these old heads, they were discussing, things down the road and things that they need to get done. And he learned real fast through those conversations that the young people are the lifeblood of any game. You have to continue to bring people into the fold that can continue to grow in what the organization is about. And the best people to get to recruit are young people. Why is that? Because young people are very impressionable, especially those individuals that come from broken homes, don't have a lot going on, and don't realize that they're being used and manipulated. Easy to recruit, easy to shower with this attention, easy to make them believe that they care about them. And the next thing you know, they are pledging their loyalty to them in a way that is really almost unbelievable. The kids, they'll do anything. Now, I never crossed that line. In fact, I remember one situation. I'm going to tell you this real quick. Let me get back to the story. I remember one situation where a brother that was in the penitentiary with me had actually recruited some younger people on the town over the phone by talking to people on the phone and made them members of the organization. They were maybe 14 or 15 years old. Now, again, don't get it twisted. I know that the organization has a lot of members that are young like that, but I never would allow something like that. I didn't even allow my two sons to become a part of the organization. They did it independent of me. Because they knew I wasn't with it. But anyway, Sean started to figure out that he needed somebody young that he could mold in a way that would get him what he wanted. Now, by this time, he's in his mid-20s. And he has a cousin. Her name is Lisa. She's related to Sean's father, right? She's related to Sean's father, who's out of the picture, by the way. But it's real cool with Sean's mother. They grew up together and friends. They just happened to end up moving away from each other and living on different sides of town, right? Sean's family lived on the north side of the city, and Lisa is her name. She lives on the south side of the city. Lisa has a son named Chris. Now, Lisa is struggling. She's struggling, working 2 jobs, trying to get it. She knows how easy it is for somebody Chris's age. Chris is 13 years old. She knows how easy it is for somebody his age to be pulled into that lifestyle because everybody around him was doing it. Everybody around him was joining gangs, already in gangs, and running up and down the streets. But Chris, he was smarter than that. He liked to stay home, play his video games, go to school, be a part of the basketball team, do all of those types of things, right? But he was lacking that father figure in his life. Sounds familiar, don't it? He was lacking that positive role model in his life. His mother, never got in another relationship after Chris's father left, abandoned her. So she's been really solo dolo for a long time. And even if she did happen to meet somebody that she liked, she never allowed them to come to the house to meet Chris. She didn't want people coming in and out of his life like that. She didn't want that. But she was struggling. She was trying to make everything work out for the better so that she could make enough money and get away from the situation that she was in so that Chris could have a chance, just to give him a chance. So what she did, when the summer came up, right, she's already working 2 jobs, right? She wanted to go to school. She talked it over with Chris, and Chris was all in favor of it, right? But she told him, look, I don't want you to be in this house by yourself for the whole summer. Because she's going to take classes during the summer, and then when school starts back, she's going to put that on hold back and forth until she gets it. She's grinding, y'all. She's grinding. So she tells him, she said, look, I want to send you for the summer to my friend's house on the north side. You feel what I'm saying? just for the summer, so that I can get this education, start this education, so we can have a better future. Chris is supportive of his mother. He loves his mother, and he has no problem with it. As long as he can take his video games, he's really not running up and down the streets with the people on his side of the city, because he's really just not into that. So when he agrees to it, the summer comes and Lisa takes him to the north side, and she introduces him to Sean's mother, Miss Kathy. And when she sees that the situation is not as good as, the situation that she's in, but it's one of those situations where she really just doesn't have too many choices. She has family that don't even live in the city. They live down south and further out on the West Coast, but she doesn't have the money to send Chris out there. She doesn't have the money to do any of that. And her family members that don't live, in the city that she's from, they don't have it like that, and she hasn't been in contact with them in years, so she don't want to impose on them. She don't want to impose on them. So her friend, Miss Kathy, allows Chris to stay there. And she introduces Chris to Sean. And keep in mind, Sean is in his 20s, y'all. He's in his 20s. And he's full-fledged vice lord, all the way with it. Chris doesn't have any affiliation at all going on with himself. But the side of the city that he lives on is where the gangsters live. And everybody in the area that he lives in is a gangster. And this is exactly the organization that Sean has been trying to find out information on. Now, all of a sudden, somebody is dropped into his lap, and his name is Chris. And like I said, Sean is a very manipulative person, an ambitious person. And he sees Chris as somebody that can get him the information that he wants. Chris belongs on the South Side. He's known on the South Side as the quiet kid. Nobody would feel like he's up to anything slick. The problem is, Sean has got to convince him that he should become a part of Vice Lord's organization, and then infiltrate the gangster organization when he goes back home after the summer. So he sets out to do that. He's kicking it with Sean. He's kicking it with Chris every day. He's taking him out, introducing him to people, and making him feel like he's part of this fake family, this illusion of a family, because he has to make sure that Chris embraces it on his own. And he's doing everything that he can to get inside of his mind. Now, Chris is not the fastest younger in the world, but he's not the slowest either, because he's grown up on the south side of the city where he sees this every day, and he's choosing not to participate in it. But see, Sean, he sees a weakness. He sees that Chris believes that this is nonsense. So he starts to manipulate his mind, making him believe that it's way more than what it is. He starts to impose on him these ideas of, all of us go to school to get educated, which was a lie. We're about trying to help the community, which was a lie. We don't believe in doing all of the things that gangsters believe in. He starts to drop that intentionally, so he can distinguish that organization from that organization. And Chris, he's listening to it, but he doesn't see the evidence, but he's listening to it. So Sean gets tired of trying to push this after a couple of weeks. So he starts to shun Chris. It wasn't in his plan to do it. He was just frustrated. He was frustrated with not making any progress. So he's thinking, I need to move on. But when he shuns Chris, he gets Chris's attention. Because Chris, again, like I say, he's a 13-year-old impressionable boy. And now all of a sudden, two weeks of attention and going out and doing all of these things. Keep in mind, I'm telling you now, that Chris's father has been out of the picture. He hasn't had any male role models to look to. And now all of a sudden, the one male role model, the one male, let me just say that, the one male that has come into his life and showered him with attention for 2 weeks, now all of a sudden turns it off. And that makes Chris feel some type of way, right? So what he does is he seeks out the attention from Sean, and Sean recognizes it. He said, oh, okay, what I need to do is make him feel like I don't want him around, and he's going to want to be around. And that is because Chris has been abandoned. He's been lacking that, and once he got a taste of it, he wanted more of that attention from a male figure. And Sean is more than willing to manipulate that. And that's what he does. So now, Sean makes it appear to Chris that they're developing this bond, this fake bond. You know what I'm saying? Like he cares about it. Like he's his big brother. None of it is real. But Chris is eating it up. He's eating it up. Because he doesn't have anything else to bounce this off of. He doesn't have anything to bounce this off of. His mother has raised him right to this point. He's seen for himself what goes on in his own neighborhood, and he's rejected it. But because he's gotten a taste of this male bonding, and it made him feel good, even though he didn't agree with what he was showing him and the lifestyle that he was trying to influence him on, he's starting to compromise a little bit on that just to get the attention from Sean that he has been lacking his whole life. Come on now. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And Sean is more than willing to take advantage of that. So he's taking advantage of it and he's grooming him, right? Summer's just 3 months, y'all. Just 3 months. Now we're into the second month, and Sean is putting the pedal to the metal. And he's introducing them to people, and nobody knows what Sean's plan is but Sean. His whole plan at the end of this summer is to have Chris become a member of the organization. That's his whole plot. So he kicks it with him every day. He's taking him out every day. You know what I'm saying? He's spending money on him. He's making him feel that brotherhood. And he's got the other brothers that are part of the organization playing a part. Unbeknownst to them what's really going on, they're just seeing him as somebody that might, hopefully, in their opinion, become a part of the organization that they love. And lo and behold, the beginning of the third month, Sean starts to put more pressure on Chris. And this pressure that he's putting on him, you know what I'm saying, is because time is running out. But he don't want to ask him, does he want to become a member? He wants Chris to ask for it. It won't work unless Chris asks for it. So he comes into the room one day. Chris comes into Sean's room one day. And they're sitting there and they're talking. And Sean sees an opportunity to try to push the issue. And he asked Chris, he said, man, what you want to do with your life? What do you see yourself doing later on in your life? And Chris is like any typical 13-year-old. He's like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? I like to do this. I like to do that. And he's talking about the typical stuff. He likes to play video games. He likes to play basketball, all of these types of things. And then Sean hits him with something that's real. He said, man, you got to grow up. He said, you see what's going on out here? If you ain't a part of what's going on out here, you're going to get ran over. And he said, I know what's going on over in the neighborhood you from. He said, you need family. You need family, man, that'll be there for you. And Chris is struggling with that because he has family. His mother's sacrificing and working 2 jobs, and now she's going to school to make a better life for them. He's bouncing this off in his mind, but he's 13 and he wants Chris's approval. He don't want to disappoint him. So all the things that his mother has taught him, all the things that all of you mothers out there that are listening, all of you fathers out there that are listening, all the things that you have teaching your child, that influence is going to come one day, and they're going to make the decision to listen and stand up and be bold about what you taught them, or they're going to make the decision that Chris made. Not because he didn't know better, because he didn't know that he was being manipulated. He was young. He was young. So when you tell your child that's like Chris, you knew better, of course that's true. You raised them better than that. But don't forget that need for a child that young to belong to something when you sit them down and talk to them. So Chris, he asked for it. He asked for that. And that's what Sean had been waiting for. That's what Sean had been waiting for. So now the day comes and they make him vice lord. And he's grooming him. He's giving him these things that he needs to learn and all of that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The indoctrination, the brainwashing. He fills his head full of this propaganda that makes him believe that he belongs to a cause greater than himself. This is something that is almost blasphemous because some people make it seem that this is something that's ordained by the Most High. They talk in terms of being somebody that's going to be transformative to the world and do good things, right? All you're going to do is hurt people. All you're going to do is hurt people. But now that he's a member, the weight of what that means is on him. Because once you become a member, there are only so many doors that are open for you to get out without being hurt. And the fear of that keeps people in line. So Sean sets him down. He's got 1 week left. He sets him down. And he tells him, look, I need you to do something for the org. I need you to do something for us. Because you're going to go back to the South Side. And you're going to be surrounded by these gangsters. And what we need you to do, listen to the language that he's using, y'all. What we need you to do is tell us what's going on over there. And the only way you're going to really know what's going on over there is you're going to have to become part of that. So Chris looks at him shocked and surprised. He said, what do you mean by that? And I'm going to tell you exactly what he means by that when I come back with this next episode, right? Thank you for listening, y'all. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.
I've been trying to breathe on the water.